Today's lesson is on adding and subtracting fractions with like and unlike denominators. First, we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. We're going to find the sum or difference, and we want to write our answer in simplest form. So for number 1, we have 1/3 plus 1/3. When we are adding fractions, the first thing we need to do is we need to look at our denominators. If our denominators are the same, then all we do is add our numerator. So our denominator for this problem is 3 for both fractions. So we're going to go ahead and add our numerators. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and then our denominator stays the same. So 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 2/3. And now for number 2, we have 5/8 minus 3/8. So the first thing we should do is check our denominators. We have 8 for both of our denominators. Since our denominator is the same, we're going to subtract our numerators. 5 minus 3 is 2, and our denominator stays the same, so it stays 8. So 5/8 minus 3/8 equals 2/8. This problem is not in simplest form, and we want to put our answers in simplest form. We know that because we can divide both the 2 and the 8 by 2. So for us to simplify, we need to be able to divide the top and the bottom, or the numerator and the denominator, by the same number. So 2 divided by 2 would be 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our answer is 1/4. We're going to continue looking at adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. So again, we're going to find our sum or difference and then write our answer in simplest form. So for number 3, we have 6/7 plus 2/7. Our denominator is the same. Both fractions have a denominator of 7. So we're going to add our numerators, 6 plus 2, and that is 8. And then our denominator stays the same. So our denominator is 7. 8/7 is an improper fraction. We need to make this into a mixed number. In order to do that, we need to divide. 8 divided by 7. 7 goes into 8 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. And when we subtract, we're left with 1. So our whole number is the 1 at the top. Our numerator is our remainder, which was the 1 at the bottom. And our denominator is what we divided by, which is the same denominator that's in the problem, or 7. So 8/7 would be equal to 1 1/7. For number 4, we have 3/5 minus 1/5. Our denominator is the same. Both fractions have a denominator of 5. So we're going to subtract our numerators. 3 minus 1 is 2. Our denominator will stay the same, so it'll stay 5. So 3/5 minus 1/5 is 2/5, and 2/5 is in simplest form. Now we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. We're going to find our sum or difference, and we want to write our answer in simplest form. So for number 5, we have 1/2 plus 2/5. The first step is to look at our denominators. We will notice this time that our denominators are different. We cannot add our fractions until we make our denominators the same. So we need to think of what we could have as our least common denominator, or what is the least common multiple of 2 and 5. The least common multiple of 2 and 5 would be 10. So we're going to convert both fractions so they have a denominator of 10. For the first fraction, 2 times 5 gives us 10. If we're going to multiply the bottom by 5, we would also have to multiply the top by 5. So 1 times 5 is 5. So we converted 1/2 to 5/10. Now for our second fraction, we're starting with 5, and we want to get 10, so we would multiply by 2. If we're multiplying the denominator by 2, we also multiply the numerator by 2. And 2 times 2 is 4. Now that we have the same denominator, we can go ahead and add our numerators. 5 plus 4 is 9, and our denominator stays the same. Our denominator is 10. 9/10 is in simplest form, so we are finished. And now for number 6, we have 5/6 minus 1/4. If we look at our denominators, we have a 6 and a 4. They are different. So we need to figure out the least common denominator, which would be our least common multiple of 6 and 4. Our least common multiple would be 12. So now we'll convert the first fraction so it has a denominator of 12. If we're starting with 6, we would multiply by 2 to get 12. Since we multiply by 2 for the denominator, we also multiply by 2 for the numerator. And 5 times 2 is 10. So 5/6 is 10/12. For our second fraction, we're starting with 4 in the denominator, and we go to 12. So we are multiplying by 3. We also need to multiply the numerator by 3, and 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/4 is the same thing as 3/12. Now that we have the same denominator, we can go ahead and subtract. 10 minus 3 is 7. Our denominator stays the same, so it stays 12. 7/12 is in simplest form, so that is our answer. Now we have 2 additional problems for adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. So for number 7, we have 3/4 plus 3/8. So we need to look at our denominators. We have a 4 and an 8. Since they're different, we need to come up with the least common denominator, which is the least common multiple. So the least common multiple of 4 and 8 would be 8. For the first fraction, I start with a 4 in the denominator and I'm going to an 8, so I'm multiplying by 2. Since I'm multiplying by 2 in the denominator, I multiply by 2 for the numerator. And 3 times 2 is 6. For the second fraction, we already have the denominator of 8, so we're multiplying by 1. When we multiply by 1, it doesn't change anything. So our numerator is going to stay 3, because if we do 3 times 1, that is still 3. Now we can go ahead and add our numerators. 6 plus 3 is equal to 9. And our denominator stays the same. It stays 8. 9/8 is an improper fraction. So we need to divide to make this into a mixed number. So we're going to have 9 divided by 8. And 8 goes into 9 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. When we subtract, we get 1. So this 1 at the top would be our whole number. The 1 that was at the bottom, which is our remainder, is now the numerator. And the denominator is the 8 that we divided by, which is the same denominator that is in our original problem. So the answer to 3/4 plus 3/8 is 1 and 1/8. And now for number 8, we have 7/8 minus 2/3. If you look at our denominators, we notice they are different. We have an 8 and a 3. So we need to figure out our least common denominator, which is our least common multiple. Our least common multiple of 8 and 3 would be 24. Eight times 3 is 24, so we'll multiply the numerator by 3 as well, and 7 times 3 is 21. And then for the second fraction, 3 times 8 equals 24, so we'll multiply the numerator by 8 as well, and 2 times 8 is 16. Now we can go ahead and subtract since our denominators are the same, and 21 minus 16 is equal to 5. Our denominator stays the same, so our denominator stays 24. So our answer is 5/24.